Hey guys, Arden Stone here. Today I'm going to make a video about a topic that has really started to irritate me um, over the last 5 years. It's not something that started in the last 5 years. It's something that actually has become a trend over the last, I don't know, 12 or 14 years. And that is the financialization of housing in the world. In the United States, it's pretty bad. It's actually really bad in Australia, extremely bad in Australia. But if you don't know what that is, you can go on YouTube. There's a couple of different videos. One of them, I mean, you just type in financialization of housing, and you're gonna get a few different results. There's not a whole lot of actual videos on it. There are some, but um, the real problem is that companies, investment companies, property investment companies, are buying up all the property in the United States, in Australia, wherever it is, so that they can turn it around and either rent it or sell it. A lot of them are actually doing it to rent because they know that if they can keep somebody in their property forever, paying them money, once the place is sold, paid off, because they're going to charge more than what their mortgage is on it or what their payments are on it probably. Um, they're going to make money off of it, and then they're going to be able to continue to do that. But others are doing it in the sense that they're going to just buy the property up. These ones that are like, there's there is a video that I read recently about, or that I watched recently about Australia's issues, where they have housing that is extremely unaffordable. They have low, or some houses that are really, they're not very clean. They're all beat up, but they're being sold for really high dollar amounts because this is what they're being used for. The investment companies are buying them, so people that actually want to buy a home can't do it because they're being bought up by all the other by these companies that are effectively just turning around and using them for profit. Um, there's a couple different videos here that I actually pulled up, but so this one is the financialization of the housing market. So you can type simply financialization of housing or commercialization of housing, and I mean, like, these people here are taught what we'll talk about a little video that documentary that follows somebody, and it talks about how, pretty much sums up some of the stuff that I've just been talking about there. But
I think the
this is
main
something important.
point that they're trying to make in this documentary, which I really took away from it, is pointing to the way that housing, which many of us view as a home, something that ought to be a human right. That's certainly the case that Leilani Farha is trying to make in this film.
This is the UN
The
rapporteur.
UN Special Rapporteur. The film follows her trying to understand this affordability crisis and this rise of financial investment in housing across the globe. And I think the key point that she's trying to make is the way that we're increasingly seeing housing being treated not as a home, but as a financial asset, as something that's primarily
Not as a home, but as a financial asset, and that is the problem. That is the real issue. Um, you know, since 2008, there was the financial crisis, and from that point on, there has been this trend that has been going up and up and rising to um, this effective situation where these investment companies just buy up the homes and they use them as financial assets. It's like it's like when you go on Facebook and you see people trying to buy and sell cars, they're trying to flip cars or they're trying to make money. They're doing that with housing now. And I mean, what that does is you can't, as a person who is a first-time buyer or doesn't have the money to afford, an expensive house. I mean, it pretty much just pushes them further away from the ability to actually obtain the house, that they want to own eventually. And that trend doesn't seem like it's going to stop. It's actually continuing to rise. It's still happening and it's getting worse. And one of the things that I think is really important to note is that, and even in my local community, I actually bought a house with my wife in the last uh, it was 3 years ago, basically, or close to 3 years ago. There were no other houses, oh, there were a bunch of other houses that were being built, but there were a bunch that were not built yet. Well, just a couple houses after ours sold, a couple houses being built after ours, right after those sold, they continued to build houses around our neighborhood, and every single one of those got bought up by a company, and they're now being rented. And that is the way that these investment companies can continue to make money, right? And so if you have no housing for people to buy housing and live in a house, they're going to go to an apartment because that's the only option, either an apartment or a house that is, for rent. And that's going to cost them too much. Most of the time, people aren't going to be willing to do that. Some of them are. These houses did fill up. Most of them all filled up. And that's because there are people that are willing to pay that price for a house to rent. But they're still renting. So that money is not going into any kind of investment for them, financially gaining them anything. It's just going into the toilet. It's going to the investment property company who is going to just take that money and use it to reinvest into other properties where they can continue to make more money and steal all of the properties in America. And but going back to the topic of, when you have expensive housing and you have nowhere for people to actually live without having to rent, then that's the only option they have is to go rent. And as an investment company, if you're going to own, let's just say if you're going to own 10 or more, or maybe something around there, apartment complexes, what do you want people to do? You want to make sure those apartment complexes are filled. You don't want to have them empty. You're not making money if there's nobody living in them, right? So how can you force that to happen? Buy up all the property and charge an asinine amount of money for it, for the houses, so that there is nobody that can afford those houses, and it forces them to go into your apartments. That's kind of the problem, and it doesn't seem like anybody really is going to do anything about it yet. I think that it's a sad situation. I see videos all the time talking about people not being able to afford housing, students, or I mean, the younger generation not being able to even come close to being able to buy their first home. I have a college degree. I've been working in my industry for 7 years. I'm a game programmer, kind of. I do programming, I do stuff like that. So I make a decent amount of money when I work. The funny part about it is I could barely afford to get this house, even as a first-time buyer. When we first got this house, I mean, I almost wasn't going to be able to. And isn't that crazy, right? I can make over like around 100,000 a year, but it's barely enough to be able to to qualify for things like that, for the housing. The house that we got here was $430,000. This is a 1,200 or 1,300 square foot home, so it's not very big, and it's insanely overpriced, in my opinion. All the houses in this entire area where I'm at are, and it doesn't really matter where you go I live in California, and it doesn't really matter where you go in California, you're going to have overpriced housing. I would have definitely not wanted to pay. I did not want to pay the price, or I didn't want to get into a mortgage with the price of our house, but there was no other option. If we wanted to get a home, this was it. Like, this was the only other option. This was really the only option. Even the houses that were 20 years old were still going for around the same exact price as what we paid for this house. And this one's a newer house. Actually, this house was brand new. We got a new construction. And there are things that when you look at an older house, the reason why those older houses should be less is because they're older and potentially need work. And you have to have, there are uncertainties, things like the heating HVAC system, the roof, the plumbing, the well, plumbing involves fixtures, so anything that consists of transferring water around, you got to be really careful. There's depending on the situation of the house. If the house was built on a foundation, you got to know how that foundation is. If it's built on wood and there's a basement area, you got to look at the structure of the house, the beams and all that. But when you buy a new construction, you don't have to worry about any of that stuff for the most part because it's all brand new. So you could see the new construction house price should be more, but it's not like that. It's like most of the houses, it doesn't matter how old they are. People are charging. They're doing they're basically doing a reskinning of the apartment, doing a little renovation, putting in some new fixtures, putting in some new flooring, painting the house. That doesn't fix any of the real major problems if there were any. If the roof needed to be replaced and you sell that and you buy the house and you sell the house, you flip the house and you didn't fix the roof, well, that's a major problem. The roofs could cost $10,000 to replace, depending on the situation. It might be more. But you've got these houses for sale on places like Realtor.com, Zillow, and whatever, and they're just as expensive, almost just as expensive as new construction, and that's because the market is there. The market is all of the houses are that price, and because there's a shortage in housing in areas, then those prices go up, and so you've got people who, oh, we can get this much for our house, let's get that. We're going to put it for that price. Nobody's going to try to sell their house for less. Why would you do that? But that's kind of artificially being inflated by the fact that there are companies here buying all the property and selling houses for high amounts, keeping it hard to keeping the supply short, right? They're keeping the supply short. If the supply goes up, then the prices of the houses are going to go down, and people are going to be able to afford them. So they're not going to be living in their apartments. They're not going to be renting from them. So they got to keep those houses in a shortage. They got to buy up anything that's available that they can. So that way, it keeps the prices high. So there's kind of it's a two-pronged problem. I mean, there's the problem that you're going to have the companies buying up all the property to force you to be in an apartment and to also force the market to always have a low supply. That way the prices always stay high. And it's really unfortunate that instead of having a society where we want people to be able to have a home, and we use homes, we use property and a home as a place for people to actually call home. We instead have companies that are like vultures who go through and try to sweep everything out from everyone, so that nobody can get something. And just in the essential need to make more money, and it's extremely disappointing. And I don't know. I don't usually make videos like this. I usually make gaming videos. I might start making more of these videos because there's another topic that I would like to talk about, and that is the salaries of really, the executive salaries of video game companies, of schools, colleges. I mean, a lot of the corporations, executives make an extreme amount of money. So that was kind of like another video that I wanted to maybe talk about. But this one, this is like something that to me is extremely, it's heart-wrenching to look in the world and see that there are, I mean, I've got, and just in my town, there are multiple homeless encampments that are like year-round. They don't, I mean, they're so permanent that the city built fences for them, gave them porta potties. They've just basically admitted defeat. The city doesn't know what to do with them. So, and they, for some reason, aren't trying to really make any more attempts. So they've just said, here, this is your space, and that's kind of how it's become. and it's really sad. I drive by these people, 2 times a week, and it's just sad to see that. That's not necessarily completely related to, the housing crisis problem, but um, you know, it doesn't help it. It doesn't help them that these people, are buying up housing, and that there's absolutely. I mean, some of those people that are homeless may have had a home at one time. Maybe they were renting, and maybe they didn't actually own a home, or maybe they did own a home, but maybe they were renting, and then rent prices went up. And that's part of the other problem. I guess I didn't really speak on that, but like rent prices are going to go up, whenever the companies that own the property decide that they want to raise the prices. Um, I mean, I remember renting in an apartment before we had this home, and the company, they sent us a notification saying that they were going to raise the rent, um, because they had to come through and replace the windows, and they were using windows that were like old. Um, uh, they were aluminum windows, and they were putting in vinyl windows, and they were going to raise the rent, I think, $100 a month, from then on out, and or two. It was, I think it was $100 a month, and to me, I go, okay, yeah, I sort of understand that, you know the house that they're improving the apartment slightly, but generally speaking, that's just a shady tactic to make more money, because those windows are going to get paid off, um, within, you know 6 months to a year, and then anytime after that, they're just making that extra money now. And let's face it, um, one year, the time that apartment is there, I mean, those windows are going to last a long time. Vinyl windows last a long time. So it's more of an investment for those people to put vinyl windows into their apartments than it is, something that they should be trying to use as another asset to make money. Um, However, because I mean, eventually there's going to be somebody else living in that apartment, and they didn't even know that the aluminum windows were ever there, but yet they're going to be paying the price. It wasn't an upgrade for them; like they already had it, or whatever, when they moved in, right? And they're just gonna be charged the price that was, whatever it is, or they'll put in a new microwave, and then they'll do that again. They'll say it's $100 more. We added a microwave. You upgraded the microwave, so it costs me $100 a month for the next however long I decide to live here. The microwave may have only costed 200 fucking dollars. Why do I gotta pay $100 a month extra for the next 5 years that I live here? I could have bought the microwave myself and put it in. Um, no, that's not how it works, right? It's just a way for them to continue to increase the cost so that they can continue to put extra dollars in their pockets. Um, yeah, it's really unfortunate. Um, and there was something else here. I wanted to show this video. This video here is the one that I started with. This one is, um, if you're not familiar with the financialization of housing, I would go look up. This is Shelterforce. It talks about it, and there was, a video that I looked at earlier about the Australian housing crisis, and that's more of a current thing. You could actually type that up into YouTube as well, and you could see the Australian housing crisis right now. 7 days ago, they put up this video, and it talks about. I think it was actually, New Money was the company, was the YouTube channel, New Money, and they have a video talking about the actual, like, they show some of the information related to how much money somebody has to have to be able to, afford a home in America versus like Australia. I think in the United States it's like average is like 4 to 1, so you have to spend 4 times as much money. Um, what was it? Let me just pull it up here. Might as well just pull it up. So let's go here. We're gonna go. here, and we're gonna go. Oh yeah, Australian housing crisis. So we're gonna cut through here.
Solar for your home. Before you do, find out if solar is really
So if you go right here, we've got him talking about. He talks about the. Start right here.
Sometimes I just want
Oh, of
rent a
course.
car.
I don't pay for premium on YouTube, so they're gonna throw some ads in here.
And I think I can help you with that.
Really?
You are going in an electric vehicle.
It's funny. It's been worse today than it was. It's been over the last month. I play like 2 commercials now.
Wow.
And you can't skip through the first one.
That's delicious. What if I told you that
A house price to individual income ratio.
Yeah.
For example, in the United States, in large metropolitan areas,
Make sure
the
you guys
average
got that. So
And then the other is wages, aka a price to earnings ratio, a house price to individual income ratio. For example, in the United States, in large metropolitan areas, the average housing price to income ratio is 4.3. This means a family has to invest just over 4 times their annual income for the purchase of their home. In places like Detroit or Cleveland, it's
I mean,
less, and in
that's the average in the United States. So 4.3. Yeah, you have to invest in 4 times as much as your annual income to be able to basically get the American dream of owning a house. And it did say Detroit and some places are a lot lower. Well, nobody would want to live in Detroit. I mean, some people don't have a choice and they have to live there, but I take that back. Some people might want to live in Detroit, but like there are areas of the United States that are obviously going to be lower because they are not as interesting, or sorry, not interesting. They're not as popular to the general population in terms of living there. And so that's why certain areas here, like Tampa and other areas, are going to be higher. If you go, it goes even higher. So as you get to the top, it goes to. We'll just go to the top here.
And in California or
Yeah, like in Los Angeles, there's obviously too many people that live there. That's not a very great place either. But for some reason, it's 8.6. Well, you know, there are reasons for that. And San Francisco, San Diego, I mean, these places where there's a lot of businesses, especially tech businesses. Those are going to be the areas where it's going to be extremely high. And Seattle, Las Vegas. I mean, think of it like this: Los Angeles has a handful, if not, I don't even know. There's probably more than 2 handfuls of video game companies down there. There's the film industry that's down in Los Angeles. That's probably why this is the highest place, 8.6. San Francisco, a bunch of tech businesses are in the Bay Area, 8.1. I mean, San Diego is closest to Los Angeles, so of course it's going to be a high. There are businesses that probably are spread throughout that area, especially video game companies, but other tech industry companies as well. And so it just continues down from there. The further you get away from like the tech, the cheaper or the lower it's going to be. Of course, the average is right in the middle there, and but that's kind of like that's the problem. So that it goes to
the average is 4.3.
The average is 4.3 here in the U.S. So then it goes to Australia.
Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, and Adelaide, with Sydney and Melbourne being home to 40% of the country's population. Now look at the world's top cities ranked by housing median multiple. At number 14, people in Adelaide are paying 8.2 times their income for a house. Coming in ninth is Melbourne, where people are paying 9.9 times their income to buy a home. And second on the list of global cities is Sydney at 13.
So Australia's got like their most expensive city is 13.3 versus our average of 4.3, and even Los Angeles was 8.3 or something like that. So, but so they're having a crisis over there, and you know, I mean, what can you do? You can't individually stop these companies from buying up all the property. Yeah, I just wanted to share my thoughts on it. I think people should be more aware of what's happening. This is a trend. This is not something new. This has been going for the last 10 years. It's just that it's gotten really bad in the last few years, especially since I think since 2020, and it's like now it's like every I mean they're doing it. They're really doing it. They're pushing on the idea that they can just continue to make money from you know buying up all the property and keeping the supply low, things like that. So anyway, well, I hope you enjoyed the video. Maybe I'll make more videos like this because there are other things that I definitely would like to discuss. But anyway, yeah, thanks again. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe. Thank you. Bye.